Hi, I'm Maisha, and this is Every Life is a Story. I want to apologize to all of you for the delay in having another story, and my friend Ray, who I've canceled on, I think, twice now. But as y'all know, I have fibromyalgia, and I've been sick, so I've just not been able to do any lately. But hopefully I'm rounding that corner again, and we're going to be able to crank some out. And I'm very honored that this evening, my friend Ray is finally, he hasn't cared at all. He's such a nice guy. Y'all are going to love him. But my friend Ray Davis is here. And I call him literally friend Ray. I've called him that in emails now we've been trying to figure out how many years. We don't know for sure yet.
A lot.
A lot, yeah. But my friend Ray Davis, and I call him that even though we've never met in person. I found the Affirmation Spot, which is his blog with affirmations. And I was just immediately drawn in. And I'm reading this stuff, and I contacted you, and you immediately got back to me. And the next thing I know, I'm asking for advice on my web. I mean, I'm just pouring everything out. What do you think I should do about this? And what should I do about that? And, and you were answering me, and it was like, and it was like we were connected, although we'd never even met each other.
Absolutely.
And right. And I'm a firm believer that energies that are supposed to connect, no matter what your belief system is, energies that are supposed to connect do connect. Mm-hmm. And I've just been so thankful, especially with the health issues I have and not, and being at home as much as I am, that a lot of people are not pro-internet. I'm pro-internet because it reaches into a lot of homes for people who need to be connected. And I've made a few connections like that. But you, friend Ray, have been one of those main connections. And I know I've just told you like everything. I'm like, what do you think I should do about this? I've sent you business ideas. I've sent you blog ideas. I've sent you everything. And you've always come back and responded. And we're on Twitter together. And we're on Instagram together. And so we're just kind of everywhere.
Absolutely. And you're doing great.
Well, I don't know about that. But, so I wanted to know your story before this whole thing with Every Life is a Story came along. Mm-hmm. But immediately you were one of the first names when this came up. I said, got to get Ray. And you said, so I'm not going to go on anymore about my admiration of you, because obviously I have you here and do have a great fondness for you. But what I want to do with our time is I just want to let you tell everybody Ray Davis' story, because I know it has got to be fascinating, because what I know about you is fascinating. So everyone, without further ado, author extraordinaire. Also, I love the first book, by the way. I can't wait for the second one. And the Affirmation Spot owner, blogger extraordinaire, and just friend extraordinaire, Ray Davis.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Good evening, everybody. The story of Ray Davis. Well, that goes back a ways. I was born in the Kansas City area, lived there for the first 50 years of my life, and grew up in kind of a middle-class family, like a lot of other people did. A lot of normalcy, I suppose. Not a lot of hiccups in my family life or the social life or that kind of thing. But when I was in my teens, I had a number of challenges that came into my life, and I really credit those for really everything that led me to who I am today. I think it would have been really easy for me to just kind of go along with the crowd and be part of that and kind of get lost in that myopia. I love the author Graham Hancock, who talks about our species being a species with amnesia.
Right. Yes. I love that too.
And I think there's a lot of that going on. I don't think it's because people are bad. It's just they get distracted by other things in their life, and I was, I guess, lucky enough, if you want to say that, to have some challenges that made me really have to look at life and question life and wonder, why are we here and why does this matter? And so that's kind of really how I got into a lot of the things that I'm into now. The affirmations, writing, all these things really go back into my childhood. My grandmother was an author, and I always wanted to be an author. And I set that aside for so many years to get a career going and get my life on track, and then eventually got into that. But I guess if we want to start someplace, we'll start with the ancient alien thing, because that really goes back the furthest. When I was a kid, I can remember when they landed on the moon. I was probably about 5 years old. And we had a little globe in our room, and we watched on TV, and we were, my dad would show us where on the moon they were landing and all this kind of stuff. And I was just always interested in space. When Star Trek was on, the original Star Trek in the original run, I would come in from playing to watch it, even though I was only like 3 or 4 or 5 years old. I would always go in and watch that kind of stuff. So I was always interested in what's beyond this earth and beyond, out in space and that sort of thing. And when I was 6 years old, I remember my dad reading a thing in the paper about this author named Eric von Daniken. And there was a movie coming out that was going to be in theaters, which today I don't think would ever happen probably. But back at that time, this movie actually came in the theaters, and it was Chariot of the Gods. And I'm 6 years old. We go to the theater and we watch this. And I was hooked immediately. It all made sense to me, even at 6 years old. And so I've just had a lifelong interest in this idea of who are we? Why are we here? Eventually, as I got into my teens, I was one of those kids that would say stuff that all make the adults kind of scratch their chins a little bit. Like, where did that come from? I always wanted to have that stuff. I was always in the conversation with the adults instead of off playing with the kids sometimes. So that was just kind of how I grew up. But grew up, like I said, normal life, played sports, went to school, graduated from high school, went to college, kind of thought I had my life going in a really good direction. And then I got sick, and I didn't know why I got sick at first. I was losing weight. I couldn't eat. I had no energy, just didn't know what was wrong with me. And I had moved back this is right after I graduated from college. I had moved back in with my folks. And so I'm living with them, and I'm just getting progressively worse. And then I got laid off from my job, and I thought, well, I'm just depressed. I just need to work through this. And I just kept getting sicker and sicker and losing weight. Eventually wound up in the hospital. They kind of nursed me back to health, set me free. And within about 2 weeks, I was back in there again because I couldn't drink anything. I couldn't eat anything. And eventually they discovered that I had Addison's disease, which is a very rare, like fibromyalgia, relatively rare disease that not that many people have. Probably the most famous person you ever heard of that had that was John F. Kennedy.
Kennedy, yes.
At that time, of course, there was no treatment for it, and they hid his condition from the public because they were afraid it would make him unelectable if they knew. Right. But pretty amazing to me, having experienced what I've experienced with this disease over the years, that someone could be president of the United States and do all the stuff that entailed, and have this condition with no treatment, because that's just crazy. But they finally figured that out. Got me turned around. I spent about 6 weeks in the hospital, and then a little time, honestly, I was a little messed up in the head. I will be honest. That really threw me for a loop because I should have been dead. The doctor told me I should have been dead. He said he'd never seen anybody with electrolytes that low that was alive. So,
oh, wow. So yeah, that is
be in the record books for something, right?
Right. Well, there you go. There's something to be in the right. Well, if you're going to be in there for something, baffling medical science.
So I got out of that experience, and I really was questioning what I wanted to do. I had gotten training in college to be a teacher. I hadn't gone into teaching right out of school. I decided I was going to go out and work for a little while. I wasn't really enjoying that. And so I really spent a summer, I guess, trying to find myself after that. And I started reading all kinds of things. I wanted to know what everybody else around the world, what they thought the meaning of life was. So I started reading. I grew up in a Christian household, so I was always exposed to the Bible. But I went out and started reading, Buddhist texts and Hindu texts and Islamic texts and Jewish texts, and trying to understand, what the consensus was on why we're here. And I found that there's not really a true consensus on why we're here, but there is. I came across the work of Joseph Campbell, and I realized that there are some common threads that kind of run through all these different cultures. And they're around, certain principles that we all uphold if we're holding true to those beliefs. And so I kind of latched onto those, kind of started making my own way, spent a few years kind of floundering around career-wise and everything. And really just studying, meditating, doing that kind of stuff. I think it was my, although I didn't go sit on a mountaintop anywhere, it was kind of my hippie stage to kind of figure that stuff out. And about 1994, I decided I was going to go back into the workforce. And I decided to challenge myself. I wanted to do something that I was scared to death of doing. So I went into sales.
Wow.
And I was scared to death.
Scary. Yeah, I don't like that either. I don't like trying to sell anybody anything.
So I got into that, and it was like a thing to try to prove something to myself. I'd gone through another challenge along with the Addisons is that I was having an issue swallowing, and it had really gotten into my head. It wasn't just even swallowing food anymore. I was like imagining all kinds of weird things happening. Like if I would get change at a store, I would count the change 4 or 5 times because I would be convinced that a penny or something had jumped up and was caught in my throat. And I would have these panic attacks that would last days at a time. I mean, it was awful.
Oh no, bless your heart.
Yeah. So that's what got me into affirmations. As I came out of that period, I had heard of affirmations. I had heard of positive thinking and that kind of stuff. I'd read a few books in college about it, but I'd never really gotten into it. And I started making tapes for myself of affirmations. And I was single at the time, so I could play, cassette tapes, dating myself back in the day.
Oh, no, cassette tapes. We're going to have to.
Tapes, I know.
Yeah. We don't have anybody that young on here. So, but we probably have people that may not understand the term affirmations. They will once you say it, but lots of times people don't know what the word is about. So affirmations.
Sure. Affirmations are really just statements of, I would say they're statements that help build your confidence, right? They're basically the I am or I can, right? Instead of, we all have little voices that go on in our head all the time. And we're saying affirmations constantly, either positive ones or negative ones. When you say, I can't do that, I'll never pass this test. Those are all affirmations too. They're just negative affirmations. So I have found in working with so many people over the years that most of us, and I don't know why this is, but I would say about 80% of the population is predisposed to more negativity than positivity. I don't know why, but that is. And so most of us are thinking negative thoughts. Some of those are things we have learned over the years. Some of them are things we heard. I mean, there's people walking around with stuff they heard on the playground in the 3rd grade, or things their mother said to them when they were, 15.
Isn't that the truth? Yes. And I think you said something that's really important. If we don't choose the positive affirmations to hear those or have those in our head, then there's going to be something there anyway. It's kind of like people who say, well, I'm just not going to make a choice. Well, you may not make a choice, but something's going to happen anyway. So a choice is going to be made. You made one by default, so you're giving up power when you do that. So if you don't choose what your thoughts are going to be, then you automatically default back to whatever you've heard, whether as a child or something. It plays in your head for some reason. It attaches to you. And so, and I'd really never, the word affirmation was relatively new to me. I'd never really thought about it in that term of meditation and, all kinds of things. But, and then I saw the affirmation spot and I'm like, affirmation, oh, I understand, it clicked. And then I started reading them. I'm like, oh, these are good. These are good. And so that's how you got to it, is you actually needed them yourself.
I did. And to this day, I am not, people think, oh, you must be the most positive person. But my wife can tell you that I struggle some days. I have to use them myself to stay in that mode, because I'm not one of those people. I started to say that I think it's really about 80% of people that are in a negative mode. And they've done research, and they say that the average person thinks about 60,000 thoughts a day. And most people, about 80% of those thoughts are negative. And we've got to flip that script. And if you're think about that. If you're hearing negative, negative, negative all day in your head, it's really hard to go out and create a positive life for yourself. And then you magnify that outside yourself and realize that that's what's going on among 7 billion people on this planet. And then that kind of explains why the news is the way it is, right?
Absolutely. And as I said earlier, for whatever reason, some people call it a God thing, which I do think there's a lot of truth to that. So I'm not saying not, but there is no doubt in my mind that there's positive energy and negative energy. And whatever you allow yourself to be surrounded with impacts your life. And so it's choosing to be around positive people versus negative people, but it's also choosing how you're going to behave yourself, because you can put yourself around all the positive people in the world, but if you're not going to let that in, if you still play the negative, or even sometimes we choose to be negative anyway, we've latched on to something that we're just, I have someone very close to me who will tell people, he'll talk about forgiveness, and he'll quote the Bible and say how, you've got to forgive to be forgiven, yada, yada, yada. And then he'll stop, because I'll be looking at him, and that tells you how close he is to me. And he'll say, I'm not there yet, but I'm telling you that's how it is. I wondered, because you were doing really well there. And he'll say, well, I'm not there yet, but I'm sharing it with them. That's where they need to be. So
well, that's all of us, right? We're not there yet. We're on a journey.
We're not there yet. And I think that is important too. But yes, I think the energies we choose to be around are important. And I think that those energies can be, which I found to be absolutely true, is you can connect to energies via the internet. There are all kinds of ways that you can connect to people. And so I just think that is amazing. Your health is a reason. My health is a reason. We have so many commonalities. But okay, so go on with your story. Go on.
Well, so I would listen to these tapes at night, and I would put them, you used to have the old 90-minute cassettes. And I would put them, I got a cassette player that would play, repeat. And so I would lay down at night, and I would let these affirmations play. I would go on long walks and, on a Saturday, and I would let these affirmations play and just play and play and play until one day I had the kind of negative, I was at work and I had this really negative thought that I always had all the time in my head. And all of a sudden I heard the affirmation that I had been using that I'd been listening to at night pop up and respond to that kind of in my head, like a little battle, right? Say, no. Yeah. And it occurred to me that what it was like, it's like, I remember when I was in high school, there was people who were really into math who there's this one guy, I thought he was really weird. He made tapes at night of math problems.
Yes.
Listen to them. And it's, our subconscious is a really powerful thing. If you think about it, we've all had that experience where we listen to a song, but we haven't really listened to it, or a commercial comes on, we see it over and over again, but we haven't really been paying attention. All of a sudden we realize we know the words to it, or we know how the commercial goes or something like that, because our subconscious has been taking this in, whether we were doing it consciously or not. And that's kind of what happens in our environment. I always like to say that, our minds are vacuums. And someone's going to fill our minds with something, and it's either going to be us or it's going to be someone else. So it might as well be us. We need to keep the thoughts that we're thinking. So yeah, I listened to these cassettes. I started seeing a lot of results in my own life. My career kind of took off a little bit. It was a few years I started dating, because I really had kind of gotten away from that during my hippie stage and meditating and all of that. And eventually met my wife, April, and we have been together 20 years now. And she was just a really good match for me, because she had studied some of this stuff. She's not quite as into it as I am, maybe, but she understands it. So I'm not completely weird to her. But I started seeing, just how it was helping me. And I started thinking, wow, I mean, this could help other people too. I should be sharing this stuff, because it's helping me so much. I should help other people. And in 2007, kind of what spurred this, it's kind of interesting. I think you may know, I don't know, we've talked about this too much, but our favorite place in the world is Hawaii. We go to Hawaii.
Yes, I know. Yes.
Every year. And the first time we went to Hawaii, it was like love at first sight for us. And we decided we were going to move there. We're still debating that. We're getting ready to move back from Boston to Kansas City. And I don't know if we'll ever wind up living in Hawaii, but we're going to maybe spend extended stays there at some point if we can get that worked out. But we fell in love, and I decided I was going to start a business on the side, and that I wanted to get out of the corporate world. I feel like the corporate world has a lot of good aspects to it. It certainly had helped me get my life back on track. But, there's a sense of wanting to be kind of in control of your own destiny a little bit. And so I've been slowly working at that over the last 10 years or so, and trying to ease my way out of there. But I decided to start the Affirmation Spot. This was back in 2007. So I think, I'm trying to remember, I set the website up and I started recording MP3 affirmations. And the idea was I was going to have people download them and listen to them, because that's how I done it. I'm a big believer. Some people remember the old Stuart Smalley thing on Saturday Night Live, right? I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me.
Gosh darn it, people like me. Yeah.
And that's the old Louise Hay thing. Louise Hay was the first big name in affirmations in modern era. And she was the one that talked about mirror time, right? You'd sit in front of the mirror and you'd say this. And I think that's a very powerful way to do it. But I liked listening, because I like the passive, because, most of the things that you, and I do things in first and second person too, I and you, because a lot of the thoughts in your head that you hear, like I said, came from other people, and they were saying, you'll never do this. You can never achieve that. And so I wanted to have a thought that would counter that exactly like that thought. And I found that to be really, really effective. So
Okay, I haven't thought about it that way before, but so if you can't, then you can. So
that's
okay.
right.
All
So
right.
battling that, right? So, so I started the Affirmation Spot. I set the website up. Twitter was coming along right about that time, and that was a perfect tool. I, started doing Twitter and tweeting out affirmations, and soon had a lot of followers, and really enjoyed that. And then about 2010. We were getting really close to being empty nesters. My two stepkids both were getting out of college or in college or kind of out on their own, that kind of thing. And I started thinking about what's my next project. The Affirmation Spot was doing pretty well for us, but wasn't able to leave my job, and I wanted to expand into some other areas. So I decided to write a book that actually was going to be a motivational book about how the world could be. And it was going to be called The Future Possible.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. And so then in 2012, so I started kind of working down that road a little bit. And then these two characters kind of appeared in my brain, and they kept coming back. And that was Maria and Nana from the Anunnaki Awakening book. And my wife went to the Philippines for a year. She took a job secondment, went over there for a year, spent a year there. So I had a year to kind of work on this. And eventually my interest in ancient aliens kind of re-emerged right at that moment. And I decided to kind of combine the two. Mm-hmm. So I came up with this idea for Anunnaki Awakening, that I was writing the book kind of explaining. So it's fiction, right? And the reason I did fiction is I didn't want to do something where I'm saying, well, this is how it is, because I think we don't really know all of how it is.
Absolutely.
But I wanted to explore ideas, and what it could be. And so the first book was kind of laying out this possible history, I think, of the way things may develop and how that may have come into the modern world. Mm-hmm. The second book, we're going to kind of hit a chaos point, kind of the moment of decision, or which way are we going to go, kind of thing. And then the third book is going to be what the original book was going to be, this kind of motivational book about what I believe planet Earth and humanity can achieve if we would really put our minds to it. And so that's kind of what the third book, kind of what the arc, they call it, of the series, right, is going to be, is that's the final book where we kind of have, I guess, utopia in a way. And I do believe in utopia.
Right. So kind of what your story is you started out in life not really sure what you wanted to do. And then, of course, you got sick. And so you kind of stumbled into affirmations because of that. Mm-hmm. And you already had this interest in, like, what could the planet be, exactly. And I think it's really important to say, I've written quite a bit on one of my Facebook pages about how I don't think that believing that there could be other life forms does not mean that you're negating God or creationism at all.
Not at all.
Creationist and religion. I'm Catholic, and when I was in Paducah, I went to daily mass. And so, but the very fact that I believe that there could be other people out there or beings out there, I mean, why would God just make us? So neither one of us are anti-religion at all. So I want to throw that out there for anybody who might be afraid we are. But know my dad. Hi, y'all that know my dad. No, I'm not little Bubby, just a little bit.
nor are affirmations, by the way. There are some people right. of religious faith who fear like thinking well of yourself is somehow not godly. And I would counter that. I really do feel like God did not put us here to catch our fly balls for us. I think God put us here to experience this life and live it to the fullest and do the best we can.
And this is a conversation I have frequently, had it today at lunch. So that's very interesting. But so you went from affirmations to connecting back to your childhood, where you were open to Van Doniken's thoughts, which were all questions. Mm-hmm. And Eric was raised Catholic and absolutely believes in God. And many of the ancient astronaut theorists believe in God and are creationists. They don't think that we just appeared or any of those things, So, so all that kind of brought you full circle. Mm-hmm. And so you ended up a book you were going to write about being positive, and then you threw in sci-fi with it to
it was like a little bit of a kitchen sink thing, right? Everything Ray's interested in.
Because that is what Roddenberry did.
That's
because
right.
He had things he wanted to address, and he knew he had to do it carefully because you couldn't hit them head on. So he went at it from sci-fi, which is what Roddenberry did. And I was a trekker too. So, and then, but your third book is going to go back to positive aspects and kind of back toward what affirmations can do. And so, and when I was reading the first book, I could tell, I'm like, oh, there's so much, yes, the sci-fi stuff is there, but there's so much of your positivity. And I wanted to say, you said, I'm not the most positive person in the world. I have to use my affirmations. Mm-hmm. That's what makes it, that's what makes them work, is because you're real, you're genuine. I mean, somebody who doesn't need something, they just kind of throw it out there and it's, but you need yours. And so they work, they're genuine, so.
Well, I'm not wishing a crisis on anybody, but I will tell you that most of the people that I know that have significantly looked at life and mm-hmm. made some choices about who they want to be, it's because they had some sort of a crisis in their life. I think there are a lot of people that have just kind of cruised along their whole life, and that's worked well for them, and that's great, but they've never really thought about it that much. I know people personally that are like that, and I love them as people, but they just have never gone below about 6 inches of depth in why this is all the way it is. It's just, that's what it is, and I think it takes crisis sometimes for us to question and really reach that moment of truth for ourselves, to try to want to strive and figure out what this is all about.
Well, and we're discouraged from doing that. A lot of people discouraged from doing that. They don't. Paradigm shift was a really popular phrase years ago, and I like that you use it because I still think it should be a great popular phrase. A lot of people don't want you to think about things in a different way, because if you do that, well, then you're challenging basic core belief systems and that sort of thing. And no, not necessarily. Just because you think about something a little differently. I mean, talk about a paradigm shift, talk about somebody that challenged belief systems. I mean, look what Jesus did, Old Testament, New Testament. I mean, he was like, talking about somebody shook things up. So he was a thinker, somebody with a paradigm shift and all those.
All the great teachers did. That's the whole point. I mean, he was a heretic. The people who founded this country were heretics.
Absolutely.
They were not like the heroes we think of them as now. To the people in those times and those places, they threatened everything that they stood for.
Right.
And that's what, and this is what you encounter when you try to get into this stuff. You try to make something of yourself. You try to question the bigger picture a little bit. You find that we have a lot of institutions, and it's political, it's religious, it's scientific, that they're pretty happy with the way they've decided the way the world is, and they don't really want anyone coming along, shaking it up and challenging that. And when you do, it upsets them a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. It's funny you use the word heretic, because I told you when we started, so I'm my family's heretic. I'm not in the extreme sense of the word by any means, mm-hmm. but yes, I am one of them that kind of thinks, no, wait a minute, it doesn't have to be just this way or just that way. And so we are already like at 6:27, so which just blows my mind, because it seems like we've done this like 5 minutes now. It doesn't seem that long at all. So we know how the Affirmation Spot came to be, how writing this trilogy has come to be. So we know what the third one is going to be about. It's going to come full circle. What would you say to people who, because a lot of people feel like they don't, they don't have, their life isn't a story, and everybody's life is, obviously. And two, I love that you tell your story, because that's why I want people to realize every life is a story, because by sharing our story, we help other people. And that's exactly what you decided to do. So how do you recommend, what do you say to people who are struggling with that or who want to do that? I mean, how do you start that? How do you go from being like you were in the beginning to where you are now? What advice do you have for someone like that?
Well, you've got to do something to develop some belief in yourself. This idea that we all have a story, it sounds like a cliche in a way, but it's not. We all have a story. I like to say we're one in a trillion miracles. Think of all the possibilities. I mean, everything in the universe that ever happened had to be just like it was so that I could be here, so that you could be here, so that the people listening to this could be here, so that we could all show up here tonight and have this conversation. That makes us quite a miracle. And I mean, if you can just get up every day and start there, I mean, just start with the fact that you are a miracle, and then just start thinking about what about my experience, good, bad, or indifferent, could make a contribution to the world. I mean, we don't all have, we're not all going to achieve something like Gandhi or Jesus or, but we all have a contribution to make. Our experiences speak to someone else. And I often tell people that, even if you don't ever have anything that you share that just changes the world, you might change a few people, because everybody needs to hear a message in a different way, and hearing your message may be just exactly the way they need to hear it for them to spark that light. Because I guarantee you there's a lot of people out there who are facing what you're facing, whatever that challenge is, and they're afraid and they're in a dark place, and they just need someone to light a match for them. So that's kind of what I try to do every day, is get up and just light a match in the world. Some days I'm better at it than other days, but I try to learn something every day, and I try to share something every day. And so that's, really how I try to do it on a day-to-day basis. And I do think you have to take it day by day. There, and if basketball fans in the audience or not, but I talk about, if a team gets behind by 20 points at halftime, there's no place you can stand on the court and make a 20-point shot and even that up in one shot. You got to play defense, and you got to go back and down the court. You got to score, and you come back and play defense again. And that's life. There's no easy way, but there is a way if you just take a step every day, and keep moving forward. And, I think you might know that I've been writing this 365 Days to a Better You blog this year. So I've committed. We're on day 59, and I've done it so far.
I know. I've seen that. Keep going. You got it. You're good. Doing well.
It's just something, every day. I mean, some days what I write might not resonate with everybody, but one day it does. And it's just like, you never know what it's going to be. You never know who you're going to change, who you're going to smile at. And it's just what they need at that moment. And if you just remember that, we all are these miracles. It's not just me. It's all of us. They do a thing in the East. There's the old bowing thing, right? We're all familiar with that. Mm-hmm. And what they are doing, at least in the Buddhist tradition, they talk about the fact that they are bowing to the Buddha and the other person, not because the person is a Buddha right now necessarily, but because they have a Buddha within them. And I believe we all have a Buddha within us. We all have a Jesus within us. And I'm not saying that we're God. I'm saying that we have that spark of God in us.
Right.
And that, we just have to let that shine. I know that sounds cliche too, but let it shine every day.
No, I don't think it sounds cliche at all. I mean, by the definition, yes, but we should just throw that definition out, because the cliche has a negative connotativity to it that it should not have, because it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, oh my gosh, we should have scheduled this for an hour, although we probably wouldn't get people if we had.
But maybe we can do it again.
Yeah, we will. That's what we'll have to do. So, well, thank you, Ray. And you stick right there, because I'm going to let you tell everybody how to find you. But before we do that, I just want to say that I know I have a lot of people who follow me because of healthcare issues. And I firmly believe in affirmations helping there. And I share Ray's stuff all the time. I share him on Twitter. I share him on Facebook, and I'll say, "Friend Ray wrote this," or "My friend Ray," or you never go wrong with Ray. And the affirmations do mention that again too, that you're doing daily. But so I do think that all of these things do fit together. So since we're almost out of time, tell everyone how to find you, and all your different places, because you're in a lot of places.
I am in a lot of places. So the Affirmation Spot is the easiest place probably to find me online. You can go to my blog, which has an interesting URL. It's affirmationspot, all one word, .me. And I recently learned that when I bought that domain, I didn't realize this, but it's like this country over in Europe, a little tiny country. And so anyway, that's where I'm writing the 365 Days to a Better You. And I would really welcome you to read that every day. I just try to give you something positive each day to start your day off. And like I said, it might resonate some days, it might not. You can find me at Affirmation Spot on Twitter. I'm on there every day, all the time. Facebook / The Affirmation Spot. And then I have two other platforms. One is the book, obviously, Anunnaki Awakening. That's available on Amazon. And then I have a partner, Dennis Nappy II, and I have a platform called Sixth Sense Media. And what we're doing there is we're trying to take some of these ideas that we talked about tonight about expanding and questioning things and looking for the meaning and seeking the truth. And that's what we're trying to do on that platform. So you can find us at sixthsensemedia.net.
Wow, you're kind of like me. I'm everywhere. You're everywhere, and I'm going to say I got it from you. I just did what you did. I said, well, Ray's got another page. I got to have another page.
Got to keep up, right?
Thank you all for joining us on Every Life is a Story. We're going to have more stories coming up soon. And again, I apologize that it was a little bit of time between stories there. I'll try not to be so long next time. And we are going to have friend Ray back. Do follow his affirmations. They really do help. I like Ray's. I like the way he does them. But and do that for yourself. Talk positive talk into your head. Self-positive talk. Do that. And that's what I'm telling you whenever I say every life is a story. We choose our story every day and write yourself a great one. So I know the day is almost over, but you can write yourself a great evening, a great night. And in the morning when you get up, I want you to write yourself a great day. So every life is a story. I'm Naisha, friend Ray Davis, author, blogger extraordinaire, joining us tonight, and we'll have him back again soon. Thank you all. Bye. Okay, you and I are